The way we succeed in business and in our jobs is selling. Whether we realize it or not, we're constantly selling our ideas, our products, and ourselves. In 40 years, I've had the privilege from age 25 to 65 to be on the record in hundreds of courtrooms in front of hundreds of judges and hundreds of jurors. I've had the privilege of having court reporters, court staff, judges, and jurors give me feedback on how to present, what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong. As a trial attorney and as someone who is a presenter, I have a unique perspective on how to be an effective presenter because I've been on the record for so long. And these lessons are not lessons that are only for attorneys. Being a great presenter is something that in any aspect of business, you're going to need to develop. And no matter how good you are, you can always get better. I've prepared a 10-part series, presentation masterclass, which will show you how to draft an effective presentation, how to deal with showtime, how to deal with slides, how to maintain your inner calm, and how to be effective at getting the result that you want. We may not realize it, but the most valuable thing that we sell is ourselves. And when we go to a job interview, when we're competing for business, when we're making a business presentation, looking for business, the quality of the presentation is going to make the overwhelming difference in who succeeds. The purpose of this masterclass is to share benefit of 40 years of trial experience in California and 40 years on the record as a trial attorney. I've won hundreds of trials and arbitrations and made presentations with $1 million in issue. Why is it that someone that isn't an attorney would want to listen to a trial attorney about how to win a presentation? Well, first off, one of the hardest things to sell in any context is that of a criminal prosecutor. You have to unanimously get 12 people picked out of the community to agree that someone is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. A lot of people will never have the responsibility of doing that or understand how incredibly difficult that is. And that is doing that with a defendant that doesn't have to testify and in a situation in which you are in a courtroom with somebody breathing down your neck on the defense side the whole time. Great trial attorneys know how to read the room, but more fundamentally, great trial attorneys know how to be on the record. They know how to be the kind of attorney that a court reporter wants in their courtroom. Someone that is slow, measured, articulates clearly, and makes the courtroom a place that the court reporter wants to work. Very few people in private business, unless they've had limited experience as a witness, have ever had the privilege of going on the record and hearing back from court reporters. And as the new Zoom and Microsoft Teams world goes on, the challenges of having a clean record, not interrupting, having a speed that everyone can digest are even greater. So we will have a series of presentations on Masterclass, Win Your Presentation, what a 40-year trial veteran can teach you about succeeding in your business presentations. There's a saying in golf that you drive for the show and putt for the dough. Preparation is what distinguishes the winners in a presentation from the losers. No amount of oratory skills or slickness is going to overcome someone who didn't thoroughly and methodically prepare for the presentation. The first question that you must address in preparing your presentation is understand, who is your audience? Have you researched them? Do you know their background? Do you know who all is going to be there? Who's your competition? Do you know what your comparative advantages are against that competition? And most importantly, with respect to the audience, what do they want? What is it that they hope to get out of this meeting, and why is it worth their time? That leads to the grab. You want to begin your presentation with the grab, something that catches the audience. And the best grab is, I'm going to make you more money, because if you watch all of these videos in this class, you will be better at presentation and your close rate in sales will increase. Amazon frequently and 24/7 tests different methods of getting attention and getting closure. Unfortunately, we in business don't have the opportunity to do that. We don't do A/B tests to see which presentation is better and which isn't. The key to a presentation is the narrative. People communicate by telling stories. And you want to have a theme and a narrative, and you want to stick to it. You also want to ask yourself the 10 hard questions, because the audience may have those in their head and be too polite to ask you. But if there are issues or problems, or you're a very small company competing against a very large company, you want to know what those hard questions are, and you want to address them. And you don't want to dodge the elephant. In court, the judge knows what the very bad fact or very bad case is for you. The worst thing you can do in a presentation is dodge the elephant and not square up and address what the hard fact or situation is. When you have completed your presentation, 100% of the time, you want to do what I do before I go into opening or closing argument, or any argument. And that is, you want to open a Zoom meeting of one. You want to record it. You want to time it. And you want to look at how you looked. And since we all use Zoom now, it's very easy. It's in the lower right. You hit record. But better than you looking at it, if you have a friend that is a court reporter, you want a court reporter reviewing how clear, how articulate, and how smooth you were to understand. These are the most learned professionals in how to articulate and how to be clear. And if you can't find a court reporter, then find a friend and get some feedback, whether it's good or bad. The question that you want to ask yourself when you've finished preparing the presentation is, were you the most prepared person going into that room? If you were, the odds are very good you're going to win your presentation. So you've studied your audience, you have your materials prepared, you have your slides, and now it's time to go. The number one rule in showtime is to understand what court reporters teach us. Being on the record from an age of 25 to 65 has taught me a key lesson. The person that knows the most about how articulate you are in that courtroom is the court reporter, because that person is a trained professional to get every word. And if you're going too fast and you're not articulate enough for the court reporter to follow, the jury and your audience certainly are going to be no better. And having provided a number of these video classes, on how to be an advocate and how to win the court reporter, I've blown up. The court reporters have been circulating these, and I have uh, a couple thousand views at this point, and daily I get feedback from court reporters. What do court reporters want? What will they tell you is effective when you're doing a presentation? Well, first off, you want to check for feedback. You want to check for volume, particularly when you're on Slack or meetings. You have to have the hardware and it has to be working correctly. Second, speed. Most people and most attorneys, even if they've been practicing a long time, go way too fast. And when they read, they speed up. Articulation. You want to be articulate. You want to frame your words appropriately. When there are questions and answers, you don't want to get excited and be hyped up on caffeine. You want to make sure that there is a gap between the end of the time one person is speaking and the time somebody else jumps in, which means not interrupting and not stepping on anyone. And the fact of the matter is, particularly when you're doing a presentation on Zoom, that when two people are talking, it is complete unintelligible nonsense. You want to have clarity. People communicate with stories. You want to have a narrative that is clear and focused, that tells a story about what it is you want and why it is that you should get there. And when it is showtime, you want to make eye contact. You want to read the room. You want to be personable. You want to be likable. And you want to see who's paying attention and who isn't paying attention. And the overarching rule when it is showtime is don't be boring. Don't include materials that are irrelevant. Don't take too long. Don't lose focus. Don't speak in a monotone and let your personality come through. There was a brilliant economist when I was studying economics at Berkeley that was my favorite, and his name was F.H. Knight. And what he pointed out was you can't really understand economics unless you understand what motivates people to do things, to buy things. And he said that there are three great motivators in life: pain, pleasure, and boredom. And of these, boredom is the greatest. When it's showtime, let your personality come through, be focused, but whatever else you do, don't be boring. Win your presentation. In order to understand how to be a good presenter, you need to understand how to be a bad presenter. And one of the worst presentations of all time occurred from Nike to Stephen Curry. Now, we're talking about an individual who is about to become the MVP of the NBA. And he already had a Nike deal. So they had the inside track. And you would think, in terms of preparing for a meeting, that they would come forward and would treat Mr. Curry with the respect that he deserved and had earned, having made them a lot of money. Well, the first problem that developed was that they misspelled his name and mispronounced it. Stephen Curry, not Stephen Curry, like Steve Urkel's alter ego in Family Matters. Del Curry, a former NBA player and Stephen's dad, was not only shocked that they couldn't get his son's name wrong in pronunciation or spelling, but that no one in the room corrected it. It gets worse from there. They have a PowerPoint presentation up, and it had Kevin Durant's name on it, not Stephen's, showing that they obviously had copied it and had just used repurposed materials. And Del Curry said, I stopped paying attention uh, after that. It also was clear that Nike was not giving Curry a prominent place. And in terms of the kind of deal that was offered, he was in a category below other stars like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Kobe Bryant. They angered, before the meeting even began, Stefan, by refusing his request to fund a youth basketball camp. So, what does this failed pitch meeting, because then Stefan became the face of Under Armour, what does it teach us? Well, first off, if you're not prepared enough with your own client to know the spelling and the pronunciations of the name, you haven't done your homework. Who was it that checked those slides? Having been in court for 40 years, the first thing that the law clerks look at and the first thing that the judges look at are, have we made typographical errors here? Is this attorney somebody who is careful and someone that we can trust? And if you see mistakes and they're grammatical errors or typographical errors, it's telling you that it wasn't checked and rechecked and rechecked again. And we most certainly have tools, including tools that will allow you to take typed materials and have them read back to you orally. In this office, we proofread and proofread and proofread again, and we proofread backwards with a ruler from the last page to the top. Because when one attorney has typos and errors and the other does not, it affects the level of care that you're reflecting to the customer. But more fundamentally, you need to know that your clients and your audience demand your respect. They demand that as you approach them and are looking for something from them, you want something from them, a signature, a deal, a job. They want to know that you're paying attention. Don't be Nike. Give the presentation that shows care, effort, and clarity. 100% of the time, when you give a presentation, once it's ready to go, you need to go onto Zoom, open a meeting with one person, and hit record. And you want to go through the entire presentation. You'll have a chance to see how you look on screen. And at the end, you hit stop, and you'll know how long it is. And after you do that, what you want to do is critically watch yourself from the perspective of a third person, and you want to give it to someone that is good at public speaking, ideally a court reporter or someone that understands how to speak slowly and how to speak articulately. Then what you want to do in a form of video proofreading, you want to look for 10 mistakes that differentiate a bad presentation from a good presentation. Mistake one, emotionless or stiff delivery. If your personality is not coming through, if you lack emotion and you're stiff, people don't want to watch. Mistake two, lecturing as opposed to presenting. Talking down to the audience is the worst thing. And in fact, attorneys who are described by jurors as, quote, slick, unquote, routinely lose cases that they shouldn't. Mistake three, blending all of your points. You want to have a central theme, a topic, and a story, and you want to stay online. If you don't have defined points, you'll give the worst presentation. Mistake four, avoiding eye contact. You need to read the room. Are people dropping off? Are they bored? Are they talking? You want to make eye contact, which shows that you care about the person that's listening. Mistake 5, not relating to the audience. You want to have done your homework, know who it is that you're talking to, and to the extent you can, you want to put elements in there. If you know that somebody in there is a fencing mom or dad and is a previous fencer, make a reference to that. Overdoing slides. Slides with the wrong color and too much information that can't be read are a total turnoff for the audience. Mistake 7, being too formal. Formality isn't bad per se, but being robotic or boring turns the audience off. Body language. A very high percentage of communication is body language. You want to be engaging. You want to show that you're paying active attention. When questions come in, you want to lean forward and give your undivided attention. Bad body language gives the wrong message. The 9th mistake is trying too hard. You don't want the presentation to seem as if it wasn't something that would be natural for you to say and do. Trying too hard is a symptom of unsureness, which means you're probably not as prepared as you should be. And mistake number 10, and arguably the most important, is saying things that are microaggressions, inappropriate, or things that people find deeply offensive. And not only, if you do that, are you going to lose that presentation, the odds are pretty good that if you had 10 people in the presentation and you said something that was offensive and inappropriate, they're going to tell another 10 people, and 100 people are going to be told, you're not the kind of person to do business with. You need to make sure that you understand when you're on the record and in a group, what's off limits. The question comes up to someone that's not an attorney: why would I want to sound like an attorney? The interactions that I've had with attorneys were negative. They were bad listeners. They were haughty. They were rude. The last thing I want is to present like an attorney. So why would anyone listen to John A. Belcher, 40-year attorney, on how to make a presentation in business? Well, the fact of the matter is that you can learn a lot from the 3 bad persona attorneys of what not to do. And more fundamentally, the great attorneys are great communicators and don't have the problems of the 3 flawed personas. The first kind of persona you don't want is the slick presenter. And I was having a conversation with a woman who runs an investigative agency, and she was hired by a very powerful law firm that charges very high fees to interview jurors. And they had had very poor results in a case. And she went and talked to the jurors, and the jurors said that they were turned off. And a group of them said that the attorneys were slick. The first rule of sales is you want to be likable. And a certain type of presenter or a certain type of attorney walks in and has disdain for the government staff, including the clerk and the court reporter, and are very self-assured that they're the smartest person in the room, and they present like that. You do not want to be slick because your audience is going to hate you. The insulting presenter. Some clients say, well, I really want a pit bull. I want somebody that interrupts the other side, that calls them names, that gets in their face, that runs up the level of conflict. Well, what's the problem with this? The problem with this is that the court reporters hate them. particularly on Zoom, you cannot talk twice over each other because it becomes a complete garbled mess. And attorneys that interrupt and presenters that interrupt and don't understand that everybody has to go at a measured speed, everybody has to take turns, are nightmares for the court reporters and the judges, the juries, and the audience aren't going to be able to follow. These are people that talk too fast. They're rude. And as a presenter, if you have a comparative advantage over a competitor, don't badmouth them or call names. It just makes you less likable. And the third persona that you don't want is the sloppy presenter. People that make mistakes, their typographical errors in the slides. The slides have fonts and colors that are unreadable. And it looks like this presentation wasn't made with care. It hasn't been proofread and video read to get all of the errors out. That's a third persona that you don't want. And great attorneys aren't insulting and they're not slick. And if they want to win, they're prepared. And that's what you want to be. So if those are the personas you don't want, what is it you do want? First, you want to be calm. Even if you're not used to speaking, you want to slow it down. You don't want to give in to your anxieties. And you want to talk in a natural way. You want your humanity to come through. You can be self-deprecating or talk about yourself or tell stories about people that can be relatable, whether they're part of your group or you yourself. You want to come across as someone that was hardworking and is going to be hardworking as you engage with your audience and as you start to do business together. And you want to be respectful, particularly of the audience's time. You want to make sure that you get to the point quickly, that you engage them, and you don't allow them to drift off. And in particular, when questions come in, you want to stop because that's telling you that they're engaged and have a question. And you want to make sure that you understand the question, lean forward, and engage. The respectful, calm, hardworking persona is the winning persona in presentations. If you've been practicing law for decades and you're used to being in a courtroom full of jurors, other professionals, it may come naturally to make an oral presentation in front of a room with people you may or may not know. The problem is a lot of people aren't skilled in this. This is not what they do for a living, but nevertheless, they need to make a presentation in one form or another to get a job, to make a sale, or to collaborate with an existing customer. So what happens when you have anxiety and you're worried that you're not going to do it right? Well, the worst thing that can happen is that the anxiety gets the better of you, you speed up, you start stumbling, and you look like you're not in command of the situation. So we know what we don't want to do, which is to be nervous, be fast, be stumbling, and not in command. But the question comes up, well, how are you in command? Well, there are three keys to how you have command before you walk into the room, and three keys of how you maintain command once you do walk into the room. First, the person that wins the presentation is the one that is the most prepared. You have studied your audience, you know your slides, you've proofread, you have honed your message, and you are comfortable that you've done the level of work that your client would want you to have done. Second, You have rehearsed 100% of the time. When anyone in this office goes into court or goes into a presentation, we have brought up a Zoom room and recorded the presentation. We've sent it out for review. We've reviewed it ourselves, and we've done it again. And the phenomenal thing about the technologies, which all of us have now with Zoom, is we can record ourselves, whereas that would have been impossible or very expensive a while ago. So by the time you have redone your presentation, listened to the reactions, you should be in the position where you've done this enough that you're comfortable that you've made improvements. And third, before you go in, you want to be in your calm place. If it's a big presentation, you want to have had enough sleep, you want to be hydrated, you want to be ready to go, and you don't want to be rushed. You want to be in that meeting early, you want to socialize, and you absolutely don't want to be rushed. When the meeting starts, you want to start off strong. You want to let the audience know why their time is well invested in hearing what your message is. I'm here to tell you how to make more money. I'm here to tell you that your realization rate on sales closings will go up if you watch this masterclass. That will put more money in your pocket. You want to come off strong, identifying your understanding of what the audience is looking for and how you fit into that. Second, you want to show your passion and connect with the audience. You don't want to be so nervous that you're just reading from the notes. You want to be so familiar with your material that you can speak slowly and naturally. You can smile and make eye contact with the audience. And finally, you want to remember to stick to the narrative. In a presentation, the audience likes humanity. They like to know how this affects people. They want to see your humanity come through. And assuming that you can stay calm and find your inner peace, you're going to be able to show that and win your presentation. Guy Kawasaki, who's a venture capitalist, is credited with a 10, 20, 30 rule for slides. No more than 20 minutes for a presentation, no more than 10 slides, and at least 30-point font. And as a venture capitalist, Mr. Kawasaki saw hundreds of presentations of people wanting money for a startup, and he said simply that most of them suck. Well, Mr. Kawasaki is on the right track, but in fact, 10 slides is too many, and 20 minutes is too long for a presentation. Why is that? Because 10 slides in 20 minutes means you're putting a slide up every 2 minutes, and the audience cannot listen to you and read the slide simultaneously. You want to be under 20 minutes, and it's like golf. If you can get your point across with 0 slides, that's a perfect score. And in fact, there are alternatives to slides. The best alternative is to have them printed out and distribute them so the audience can read them at their leisure. One tactic that I learned that is extremely effective in trial is I prepare a written opening argument where I lay out in detail the chronology of the case and the evidence that relates to the case. And I have yet to have a judge refuse my written opening argument. It's something that the judge can go back to, look at, and understand where my evidence and arguments are going to flow in connection with the narrative. And invariably, my opposing counsel go crazy that, this isn't allowed, it's improper. And I'm like, well, would you rather I read it to you? And the judges uniformly take it. It is a better idea to take the information that would be in the slides to the extent that you can and distribute it. Dave Parati is a presentation expert. He's written multiple books on it. And he did a survey. And here are the findings of what he found that audiences did not like about slides. 73.8% felt that the speaker was reading slides that contained too much content. And the worst thing you can do is try to put 10 gallons of information in a 5-gallon aquarium receptacle. The audience feels that the speaker is reading a detailed report to them. That is a misuse of the slide. Slides contain full sentences instead of phrases, 51.6%. Text on slide too small to read, 48.1%. Color choices on slide make it difficult to read, 34%. And overly complex diagrams or charts, 26%. PowerPoint's been around since 1990, but there's not a single person that is viewing this video that hasn't cringed at the misuse of slides in a PowerPoint or other presentation. Keep it simple, keep it clear. If you're going to use slides to have your message, use fewer and get to the point. When you're giving a presentation, you're selling. You're selling your idea, you're selling your company, you're selling your product, and you're selling yourself. But the presentation is not the beginning, middle, and end of the selling. In fact, to effectively present, you need to win the room. And how do you do that? Well, first off, you don't assume that because you finished and perfected your presentation, that is the end of your work. You want to have prepared for the interactions you're having with the audience before the presentation, which is why you want to be rested and you want to get there early. You want to have information about who is in that room, and in particular, who it is that you want to engage with. My daughter, Marta Belcher, a very successful attorney, gave me something that really stuck with me, which is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That's been attributed to Lorne Michaels and a number of other people. You want to make your presentations to people that are as powerful and smart as possible. And when you have an opportunity to network and expand, you want to use those opportunities, both before and after the presentation, because you're being judged every second that you're there. And so you want to be polite and respectful. You want to watch your body language. And from the very minute that you walk into the room, you want to enter with confidence, like you're prepared, like you're glad to be there, and like you're the kind of person that the people you're interacting with would like to do business with. And one of the keys is to remember people's names. You want to have looked them up on LinkedIn. You want to know a little bit about their background, and you want to be prepared. So remember that presenting isn't just the 20-minute presentation. Presenting is the moment that you start preparing and learning about the audience till the time that you leave. You want to be confident, you want to be engaging, you want to be polite and respectful, and you want to win the room. No matter how much you prepare, No matter how strongly you feel about the strength of your presentation, there are going to be instances in which things go wrong. And you know that the audience has not selected your presentation. You know that the work that you've put in is all for naught. And a natural reaction is to be a sore loser. Our human emotions get the better of us. We say things, we lash at either the uh, person that is the audience or the other side, which is a terrible, terrible idea, because you're going to have a lot of repeat encounters with both your opponents and with that audience. And they're looking for leadership and dignity, and they're watching how you react. When people look for leadership, they look for 6 qualities. A leader knows how to shift others from a reactive to a proactive frame of mind. In critical moments, a leader is at his or her best. A leader is a source of stability when others are flustered. A leader knows how to de-escalate situations that are beginning to get out of control. A leader has calm, thoughtful style that makes issues that are sometimes problematic discussable. And a leader prompts a thoughtful attitude and an objective perspective. In fact, when people are asked to evaluate people that they report to in terms of calmness and the ability to control a situation, a lot of leaders and a lot of employers get very poor marks from the people that report to them. So when you're at the presentation and things go wrong, what are the 6 keys to maintaining control? Number 1 is hit pause. And whoever wrote the book Blink, which is make a decision in a split second, um, hasn't really seen the consequences of that. Because if you react with your gut, raise your voice, increase the tension in the room, you're doing exactly the wrong thing. You want to hit pause and you want to take a stock of your own emotions. Second, you want to take the long view. A lot of leaders have a bias towards action and want to immediately get in there and try to undo the thing that was done, even if it's never going to happen. In the long run, you want to maintain your style and credit as a leader. Third, you want to examine your own emotions. Um, Emotion can create a chain reaction, and as one person gets emotional, the other person gets emotional. You want to recharge. Even if your natural inclination is to work and put more and more hours in until the problem's solved, ultimately you're going to burn out, particularly if you've been doing this as I have for 40 years. Fifth, recognize your triggers. Know that the people that want the business, that are on the other side of the presentation, probably have done some research on you and know some things that get you excitable or excited. Know your own triggers and learn how to stay calm. And finally, communication. One of the hardest things to do is to pick up that phone and tell the client that things didn't go well. And in fact, we didn't get the business, we lost on the presentation. But what you want to do when something painful has happened is increase the communication. You want to get to the client promptly and take ownership and express what happened. And finally, you want to step back, and when you're calm again, you want to reassess, and you want to look at what you did and what you didn't do. And if possible, if you have a jury or if you have an audience that's willing to share with you what went right and what went wrong, You want to be a good listener. Communication, calmness are the hallmarks of a great presentation, and you're going to need these skills, particularly when things don't go right. This is the conclusion of my 10-part masterclass on presentation. I've already had the privilege of feedback from some people that found some of the concepts and ideas useful and helpful in their own presentations moving forward. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to give this masterclass and welcome your feedback. You can make comments on LinkedIn or on the YouTube channel, which I welcome, because part of the job of a trial attorney, of a presenter, is to listen, get better, and understand and hear from your audience. Thank you so much.